I'm Julia Cordova, and welcome to the Place Your Trades Network. Today, my guest is NickStocks. We're going to be talking about buying bottoms and selling tops, which is really just how to identify support and resistance, and then, of course, execute properly. Today's podcast is brought to you by Tradeabate, which has a built-in custom app dedicated to trading event contracts. It's what we're all using at Place Your Trades. Use the link in the chat to start using the Tradeabate web app for free, and where you can follow along and make your own picks. And make sure you like and subscribe to our channel and set notifications so that you never miss our podcast. So today I'm super excited about Nick. Nick is somebody I've been following, I think, since I joined Twitter. He was really, I think, one of the first people I followed. He does a lot of really cool trading with more equities than I do. I usually try to stick to the indices for the most part, but Nick is, he's somebody who kind of finds those opportunities with certain equities and does a lot of great trades. And I also subscribe to his Substack as well. So welcome, Nick.
Hello, how are you today? Happy Monday.
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, it's Monday. It's my first day back from vacation. I was traveling. Sorry?
That's always a tough one.
Oh yeah, no, I was in vacation mode last week. I'm surprised I could fit in my pants today. It's one of those things where when you're on vacation, it's just like debauchery. And of course, like I was on a boat, I was on a cruise, and then while I was gone, only a few people knew that. And while I was gone, some lady from Florida fell off a cruise boat, and they're like, "Oh no, Cordova's gone over the edge." But it wasn't me.
It would have been a funny story, that's for sure.
It wasn't me. I did have some intrusive thoughts, but that's for a whole nother.
We'll save that for next week's show.
Yeah, I know. So how has your trading been going lately? How are you doing?
It's been going pretty well. I've been, pretty happy with it. Opportunities have been different for sure this year. I feel like if you're playing the long side, it's very you have to be, super precise, and you're really looking for like these bursts of liquidity. And it's really just like these concentrated liquidity grabs that they're looking for in these bear markets.
Yeah. So, now, do you trade both directions though, right? You short things.
I do.
Yeah. So
it's really, I'm just looking for the volatility.
Okay. So do you have a scanner that's set up that you identify different things, or is there something in particular that you look at when you're trying to, set up a trade? How do you identify opportunities, first of all?
So first of all, I do most of my analysis via the options chain.
Okay.
So I'm not really looking at a chart all day. Chart is my secondary form of analysis. First of all, I want to be on the options flow. I want to be on the options chain, see where the activity is. And then from there, if I see the activity that tips me off, then I'll go to something like, the chart, look at smaller time frames, kind of try to break it down from there.
Got you. Okay. So first you look for sort of unusual or large, a certain kind of options flow.
Exactly.
And then you drill
kinds of activity that'll tip me off typically.
Okay. And how, so are you a scalper? Are you a swinger? Like, how long are your trades usually?
The vast majority of my trades are I would probably say swing time frame.
Okay.
I will scalp. It really just depends on I like to position with some extra time just for protection.
Yeah.
To give myself the freedom to have a swing if I want. But if that turns into a scalp because, the trade works in quicker fashion than I originally anticipated,
right,
I'm never usually upset with that.
Got you. Okay. So you give
I'm never really looking for like the time frame where I'm going like a large amount of contracts for like, 1 or 2 points.
Yeah.
I'm not that type of a scalp trader.
Okay. So you're looking for, you actually give yourself some cushion then, right? You don't you're not looking just, home run by tomorrow. It's going to be, give yourself a little bit more time.
Time, I'm a firm believer that time is one of the things that judges you in the market, and one of the only things that can judge you in the market.
Okay.
And I think you're doing yourself an injustice by not getting enough time.
Got you. I'm going to I forgot to retweet when it went out. I can't help it. All right. Let me do that right now. There we go. Okay, so now people can see us on if they happen to follow me. Okay, so and as far as like I looked on, I was looking at your profile and it says buying bottoms and selling tops, that kind of thing. And that's my gig. Like I'm known for sort of being a contrarian, which is
Hmm.
which is how I describe myself, but it's also weird because I never feel like I'm doing anything super risky. I feel like I'm just buying support and selling resistance, but it's at those times when people get emotional, if they're feeling one way or the other, they get super emotional and then they think that I'm, crazy, but I'm just,
Hmm.
for me, when I look at whether something is a bottom or a top, I look for a confluence of things. I look for, it meeting one of my levels. I look for potentially an MA. That's sort of my bigger picture thing, but I look for it a level. I look for it MA. I look for RSI support or resistance as well. And if I've got one or more, and also I look at other charts. So if I'm looking at ES, I'm looking at NQ at the same time, because if something falls through my ES chart and I see NQ though it's supported really heavily there, then I'm going to know that potentially that's a fake breakdown in ES, and then go that. So I look at like lots of things at the same time, and then when I get a certain number, I'm much more confident. So I guess, how do you, when you're identifying support and resistance, what do you usually look for?
Absolutely. So that's definitely a great way to do it. And it's always really nice if you can start to see the beginning of a sector move in the market. If you see that you have Apple running up and, Amazon has really been lagging behind, and, now Facebook's moving up too, or excuse me, Meta is moving up as now well too. You can kind of process of elimination, one by one, they're going to start to trend that direction if the whole market is trending in that way. One thing I really like to look for is, like I told you, I'm on the options chain a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for a certain kind of buying or selling of these puts that I'm looking for big money to come in, but also to fail. So as you know, the market is not always very smooth sailing.
Right.
So I want to see these big buyers try to come in and try to attempt to carve out this bottom. And then once they fail, they're kind of trying to drag them down. I know that this big money is positioning with enough time most of the time to be able to get that bottom. But it just might not be today. It might not be in two sessions from now, 3 sessions from now. But you kind of see they're starting to prepare for it.
It's so funny that you say that, because one of the things I look for in equities, and I don't talk about equities a lot because once I found out I can accidentally move them, so I actually stopped, because I was like, that makes me uncomfortable. If I talk about things that have low float or whatever, I didn't realize until I did it, and then I'm like, oh no, I don't want to be. Anyway, one of the things that I look for on a stock chart is, you just, in whatever time frame that you're trading, when I see some huge volume on a particular day, and it looks like it's been going up, and then I see huge volume on that day, or if it's down
Hmm.
and down and then huge volume, I have noticed that you don't, if you want to actually catch the actual bottom or top, you don't actually want that high volume day. You want like 2 days after it. It's funny. I think they do that for the SEC. I shouldn't say this out loud, but I think that I really do. I think that big money on purpose does not catch the exact top or bottom. I think 100% they're like, well, we bought it and then it kept going down and then it went up like 2 or 3 days later. I don't know. Like,
Exactly. It's a lot easier to that 2 3 day leeway.
yeah, so it's so funny you said that, because coming from a completely different like way of thinking, I had the same observation. That was something I noticed when I first started trading, and I was like, oh, you know what? It's not, because I would buy it with the big volume. I'd be like, ooh, I'm gonna get on this, and then be
Hmm.
like, well,
I
crap,
think we've all been there at one point. You see this buying, you're like, oh, it has to happen.
that, yeah, right.
And then
Then I
you're
would
sitting
get,
down like 30% in a couple days on the swing, but over time it's still going to play out, but it's still just like, okay, I could have saved myself, could have got 30% more contracts, or I could have saved myself, a little bit of pain in the last couple of days.
exactly. Or it could have just, if I had FOMO, which I do, I'm guilty of having FOMO for sure. So what I do is I literally buy one share of something so I can watch it. You know what I mean? So I
Hey,
could
what?
like,
That's a great way to learn.
it is. And
People
also,
don't realize it, and if you can just sit there and watch any equity and learn how it moves,
Yeah.
and then go to trade it 6 months later, I guarantee you'll find more success.
And they do trade, to your point, things do trade very differently. I mean, in my world, like, natty trades extremely differently from oil, and you just got to watch things. There's no shortcut. At least for me, if you have identified a shortcut and can share it with our studio audience, I would love that. But I just haven't found a shortcut other than just watching something and getting to know it and knowing the way that it moves. I mean,
This is the thing is a lot of things in the market just take time, and that including learning the equities you want to trade if you want to be a truly successful trader. That's just the next level of understanding, I think.
yeah, no, I agree. So what was there a particular time that you sort of it kicked in with you? Okay, I got this. Like, because there's a learning curve associated with trading, of course, but
Absolutely.
at any one particular time where you're just like, ding, like was there a switch
There's
that
definitely a couple times on that for me. So really when I started utilizing options flow to the best of my capability, I really found out it's a very powerful source of data. And even if it's not coming into focus right away, it always helps me to keep that in the back of my mind because the activity is there for a reason. I find out most of the time, especially when you're looking at like the mid to long time frames. And then the second one would definitely be the utilization of spot gamma. So the way the market makers are hedging heading into the week, I know it's really helped me out immensely on analysis of the S&P 500 because I'll trade the
yeah.
SPY pretty regularly. It's well, I feel like I have a trade going probably for around like 75% of the year. I'll constantly just be, at some point or another trading something on the SPY or one direction. And, I mean, I might be like, let's say last week, the only trades I was making on the SPY was every time it spiked up to, around that 410 area, I was going out and buying June puts.
Uh-huh.
And, I might have been up 20% by the time, and then we spiked back up to 410. And that's where I got my second entry. So I'm really looking on like sometimes a really long time frame on these trades.
Okay. Interesting. So, but like, from when you were first starting to trade and then was there a moment where you felt like, you know, that you could be? So for me, I think successful trading is less about winning the trade or losing the trade. It's more about consistency and how you handle both winning and losing trades. It's about consistency more than anything else, because even in Vegas you could put it all on red or black and come out a winner, but it's about doing it over and over again and still having and being
Absolutely.
profitable.
So,
So was
I was a COVID stock baby.
okay.
And I heard from a lot of people, you just started and, you might not have what it takes. And I was very fortunate and happy to be able to start in a bull market. It definitely gives you a little bit more leniency as far as learning.
Yeah,
I
right.
think it would be very, very hard to learn in a bear market. That's for sure. If you don't have like those fundamentals down. So it's probably about like 6 to 7 months into my initial trading when everything started to click for me. I
Gotcha.
was successful at first, and it was probably about 3.5 months into my trading that I started trading options. So it was kind of a quick jump when you think about it. 3.5 months from zero to options
Yeah.
trading, then to successful option trading. That was kind of my timeline.
I didn't trade options for a long time because I had heard from other traders that it's a good way to go broke. Like, I mean, because it's
You can
all
definitely do that.
it's right, it's all or nothing. But and that's one of, I mean, I trade them a little bit. I'm not a sophisticated options person. I'm so lucky that I have great followers that are amazing with options, that I can ask their opinion on something. If I think something's going in a certain direction but I don't know when it's going to get there, I can ask their opinion on it. But
So the thing about options is obviously it's a great tool that you can use at the right time, at the proper time.
yeah.
That's the thing I have to stress the most because the risk on these contracts can sometimes be astronomical and you don't realize it. But there's times in the year where if you follow that equity all year long, there will be plenty of times where there's almost, comparatively zero risk. And
Well,
at the times when there's that little risk, sometimes it's just worth it to take the shot on something that, you might have a couple weeks of time on, just because market makers don't think it can happen.
yeah.
And when they don't think it can happen and it does, that's when you can get those exponential gains.
So that's the same. We're sponsored by Trade Debate and the event contracts. And so, I mean, because these are so cheap, I mean, they're inexpensive. And so I'm using them to sort of hone my chops on options trading before I sort of graduate to something, more, I'll call it complicated. The word's probably sophisticated. But a same thing happened where I bought something for 75 cents and then it went to $20
Yeah,
because
it's all.
I don't believe that they thought that it could happen. And my original plan was, I was going to like at 5, I knew it was, I didn't know anything, but I suspected strongly that it was going to go to $5 probably. And then I would, get out of it. But
Mhm.
as it started to go up, I'm like, I think I caught the bottom of that. So
Sometimes these trades, they catch momentum at the bottom. You don't realize it until until the trade has a chance to unfold.
right, right. Do you have a particular strategy with how you get in or out of one of your trades? Do you scale in? Do you scale out? Do you
So
just?
yeah, I do like to scale in, and I do like, especially if I'm looking for that swing time frame.
Mhm.
And like you said, sometimes 2 or 3 days after those high volume days is really when it's the best time to be buying. And
Yeah,
when you're thinking about a swing time frame, if I'm looking, 6 to 8 weeks out, let's say, if I'm on day 2 or day 3 of the trade and I'm, down marginally and I still have the same conviction that I had on day 1, I don't really think it's a reason why I should end the trade by any means. So it's definitely a reason why I would choose to scale in on a trade like that.
yeah.
If it's a short-term trade, if it's anything that's weekly, I'm definitely not looking to scale. Um, Anything that's weekly, I'm pretty strict on. If I have a level I want it to be cut on, that's it. I kind of want to get in and out just because weekly contracts, you can definitely play with some fire there.
They're crazy. I have been doing the Tesla stuff lately, and I was super lucky because the first time I did it, like there was an upgrade the next day. I'm like, this is crazy. And I was also lucky because I got both the lottery weeklies and I got, a little bit out. So
Hmm.
I was like, oh right, working it, and
Yeah.
I got rid of the lotteries pretty quick because I was like, because I just didn't want to. But yeah, so that worked out. And then the next time I tried it, it was like and then so it didn't work out.
So
But
that's another thing I look for too, is sometimes you can kind of, I don't know how experienced you are. You say you don't trade options too much, but there's definitely a feel on the premium and the way it moves when you can catch a bottom.
yeah.
The liquidity that comes in and the gains that you'll get are, I want to say, indistinguishable compared to the one that you'll see when it's going to chop lower.
So I'm still not there. So I'm going to use you as my resource. So if I'm looking at something, I might just DM you or something and say, hey, what do you think about? I don't want your poor DMs to fill up with other people too. But no, I mean, I know I hear what you're saying. I've heard other people talk about that. And I'm going to still rely on other people who know better than me at this point. I'm just not there yet. I
It's
don't look at
essentially
that.
like, so let's say I'm buying a contract and it's priced at, $1, and I think that's a pretty good scalp. And then the gains, I might a little bit down in the session, I might be at 1.3, or when you look back comparatively to where it's traded, if this contract was at, 10 back a couple weeks ago, and now you're looking at it and it's, still trading, sub 1.5, you can kind of, I don't want to say chart it out because technical analysis on options can get a little hairy,
Yeah.
but you're seeing that it's making these lower highs and it's not really bouncing and it's not finding the liquidity it needs to carve out a bottom compared to where it's traded before. I don't know. You're really looking for like a exponential gain that's not given up and it's not traded again in that area.
Okay, so
That makes
basically
sense.
they aren't letting it back down to where you bought it or
Exactly. And
sold
even
it.
if, so let me use for an example, because obviously theta comes into play with a lot of this.
Yeah.
So one of the trades I took last semester, I'm talking like I'm in college again, last quarter, was when the SPY dipped below 350, I wanted to look for the January 420 calls. So
Oh,
when I was
yeah.
buying those, they were trading around like 1.5 at the time, and it was just a brief moment of lessened liquidity on that contract because the SPY jumped right back above 350, and we trended up for the most part for the last 8 weeks above 400. Before last week when we eventually lost it. On the pullbacks on this option, you'll see that even though the SPY, I believe it was just like a couple weeks or a week or two after that we traded underneath 350 on the SPY, we pulled back, and I think we had a low around like 374 area.
Hmm.
The contract traded, I believe, back down to 1.8 roughly, and I was buying around 1.5 before. And the SPY was 25 points higher than it was roughly below when it was at 350, but the contract was only about 20% higher than it was when I was buying it. So you see something like that really doesn't equate to.
Right.
So at that point, it's a good buy just because if it falls back down, it's already just going to fall back to lower lows.
I know
It's just a
exactly what
discrepancy
you.
in the premium at that point.
It's funny. The same thing works for when I look at price action in charts. It's very similar. That's funny that you say that. So I just got to I've got to make that leap. But okay. So is there anything that, the market pulled back. So I had been obsessively buying the dip for few months, and people were like, Cordova, what are you doing? But it was because that I thought we would get back to the September CPI highs before the end of the year. That was my target. That hit last week, and then we went row down. So is there do you look at a macro? Do you look at the overall market, of course, before you do anything? Is there anything you're watching for this week that you want to tell us about that we should be looking for as well?
Absolutely. So really what I'm looking at is, so generally speaking on the market as a whole, my thoughts were the last rally that we had and rejected 410 above 410. I saw that coming for a little bit. I was kind of waiting for it. The reason I found out that they weren't positioning in the December 16th premium was just because of the huge decay it had before they finally fell.
Yeah.
I still do think we're in the bear market, and I still do think that we're going to trend back lower towards those lows in the first quarter of 2023. Really looking for Apple. I think Apple and Tesla will be able to kind of judge the market pretty well. Apple's just tested some prior lows of last week on Friday.
Yeah.
And if that's going to continue lower, definitely don't look for any strength. Same with Tesla. If it's going to, pretty easy pivot is 150. So if we're going to have both those below some major pivots, definitely not going to look for any strength in the markets moving forward until they can at least find some short-term support.
Gotcha. Okay. So what you're saying is look at the two reindeer in the front, and then you're going to know the direction that we're going to go.
Exactly. Or at least I don't want to be on the wrong side of those.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I have the same thing where I look for particular, lately I've noticed that the strength in metals has been leading the market in general. So I've been watching that myself, but it does, things like that turn off at any time. So I'm always prepared, but it's something that I've been looking for as well. Okay. So with that said, I ran a poll last night. My polls have been doing very well, Nick. I have a lot of super smart followers. At least the people who vote right away are really
That's always
smart.
a good thing, right?
Yeah. No, I'm super lucky because, I learn so much every day. But anyway, everybody voted on us pretty much closing the day or settling on the day at 4:00 higher than we started from. So 38.75. So I'm going to place that trade right now. I have to share my screen. Oh boy. I already did it because I thought it would be more expensive. I bought a couple, but I'm going to do it again. All right. So let me just share my screen here. 1 second. Present. Okay. And oops, hold on 1 second. Okay, now. Oops, sorry. Okay, now I can do it. Goodness gracious, I'm not ready for starting actual like working stuff. All right, here we go, share. Okay. So now I'm sharing my screen here. This is what the app looks like when you open it up on your phone. This is just sort of a jankety web version of the same thing. We can sort of look through all of the different markets. You can see that we're pretty much flat. 38.75 is what I did the poll on. And then, you know, looking through here, looks like oil has some strength. Gold is flat with everything else. And then natural gas, super hard to trade. It's all over the place. It's like, it's all over the place. And then, so pretty much green. That's interesting to look at copper, by the way. Copper, I've been trading a lot recently, at least with these options, just because it moves so well, at least from what I found. Anyway, let's look at ES. And so I'm going to go ahead and vote yes. And today's my order. All right. So we're on the market now. See, I have two. All right. So, and let's just look at the hourly candles here. Or that's actually NASDAQ. I'm sorry. Anyway. Okay. So we're pretty much coming down here. So let's see. We gapped up on the open here and then haven't quite filled these gaps yet from when we opened, but that's it. Okay. All right. So thank you everybody so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
That was awesome, Nick. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to writing a dual Substack with you.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you,
write on
everybody.
Substack twice a week. So
wow.
Anytime you want to join us, please do.
Awesome. So everybody, I did mess up on Nick's name before. It is N and then like lowercase l instead of an I, and then CK and then stocks. So if you want to follow him, do it that way. And we'll see you on the interwebs. Bye, everybody.
Bye.